Rich, before we dive into that too much, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do with Lockstock Cybersecurity?
Sure. We're a trusted advisor for companies to make sure that their internal systems, external systems, including web applications that we're going to be talking about today, that those things are secure and to what their budget constraints are, to what makes sense in terms of their risk, and for those vulnerabilities that are exploited, because that just happens, I help make sure that those businesses are able to recover quickly and minimize the damages.
Outstanding, which is part of the reason why you're here on the show today. Not only did were we concerned about this particular scandal that's going on, but also, for our own protection as well. We're developing an app, and so we would like to avoid this pitfall if we can at all possible. So, and for those that might not know, the T app has altruistic origins. The gentleman that developed the app and started the company, he started it because of his mom and her dating experiences. Apparently she had been catfished online and she had had several not nice dates or whatever. And so he was trying to connect his mom with other women so that they could maybe avoid those kind of situations and help watch out for each other a little bit. In the process of doing this, they were going through and they could post pictures of men, numbers, other information, and it was based on a red flag, green flag system. Mm-hmm. So did you have an okay time? Did he treat you like a gentleman? Was it not okay? Were there red flags, basically? Things that were sketchy that, other people wouldn't want to be involved with. And so there's been a lot of debate that's taken place about legality and personal information and things of that nature. We're not going to dive into, a lot of people have covered hypocrisy that has come up as a result of this whole scandal. What if the other side did that? Or, it's people in glass houses throwing stones because here they are doxing other people and got doxed themselves. Mm-hmm. What we're trying to focus on here is the dox itself, how it could have been prevented. And so the initial question that I have is, apparently this all came about because they had the women's personal information. They had to prove they were female to be on this app. And so they had to take a selfie, typically with some sort of identification, the driver's license or whatever. Mm-hmm. This information wasn't supposed to be kept. And yet it was. And not only was it kept, but apparently it was kept on a public domain that anybody could get into. And that's the first part. So it was less of a hack and apparently more of just somebody didn't bother to protect the information at all. And the final aspect of this was they were supposed to have gotten rid of this as soon as they verified that they were in fact who they claimed to be in order to be on this app. So from that point of view, dive into a public domain.
Sure.
And then I've got questions about how on earth they should have been, dropping this info, protecting this info better, whatever.
Sure. So I don't know all the details of how things were compromised. I like that you threw in there that this is not being classified as a hack, but more so access to public domain. There are three cornerstones of, if that's how you want to put it, but there are three main areas of cybersecurity. It's confidentiality, which is keeping things private that you want to keep private, keeping things unknown to those that you don't want them to about them. Then there's integrity. So it's data. You want to make sure that when you access your data, it wasn't changed in some way by someone else or by some other process. And then the third one is is availability. You want things to be available when they need to be available, in this case, data. Facebook, for instance, they are very concerned they want their data to be available. They want users using their application. This is somewhat of a social media app, so that's why I bring up Facebook in particular.
Well, with Facebook, they sell the information that they collect, first of all, and they use that information so that they can target ads and stuff on a regional or local or state or national basis, mm-hmm. right? Because they derive their income from it's a free app, so they derive their income from the ads and the data that they're able to sell, right?
Sure. Well, I mean, the difference between Facebook and this app most likely is people are putting their information onto Facebook. If people's information were to be breached on Facebook, like their first name, last name, what city that they're in, there wouldn't be as big as a fallout for Facebook. They, again, their main concern, they want to be available. They want to make sure that users are using their application. On the other side, Facebook doesn't do a lot of verification like this app was. This app was intended to, they were selling confidentiality, and they were selling that not only do we keep your information confidential, but we're not going to let bad people, bad users onto this site. So we're going to have people prove who they are. They are who they say they are. So that's an additional layer that adds complexity, and it also adds risk to this particular application.
Well, for me, red flags go up as soon as somebody hits me up for either, my social security number, my driver's license number, everything else. So I'm a little fuzzy to begin with how they were able to get, they supposedly recently surpassed 1 million users, how they were to get 1 million people to willingly sit there and take a picture with their driver's license. As crazy as everybody is about having their identity stolen, to me that seemed like that's fishy item number one, I guess, about the whole process.
Well, you're one of the anomalies. Most people are not concerned about that. They put a lot of trust into, they've used other applications, nothing has gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong so far. They don't anticipate things going wrong. We do a lot of things that are risky, and some things that you might not even consider that are risky. One of the big things is when you go to a doctor's office and you check in and you put your information in, and that's being tied to other information about your health. That's all supposed to be protected by HIPAA. It's all considered protected health information. There's a lot of things that we do, and there are probably some cases that you're just not coming up top of mind right now, where you're uploading private information, including even, in some cases, a driver's license. If an app is asking you to provide your driver's license, but you know that everyone else is providing theirs, there's a level of trust that can be built from that situation. And we are in a very trusting society, which has led to some compromises.
Very much so. So let's dive back to the public domain issue. So what does that mean in layman's terms? I'm not a code writer.
Sure.
So, what does that even mean to me?
Well, public domain just means it can be reached by typing something into your browser. There's no authentication tied to it. So there's no asking for you to prove who you are, and there's nothing asking to prove that you are authorized to see that data. And what I believe occurred for this particular access, unintended access, was that credentials like pictures of driver's license and protected information, private information about individuals is exposed. It sounds like this app, though they had good intentions, they were not storing things in a way that made sense. In fact, they shouldn't be storing it at all. We'll talk about some best practices moving forward. If you're going to have an app that's collecting things like a driver's license, you might want to consider having a third party do that for you. They're good at doing those things, and what you can have happen is you take that picture of the license. When you send that license to that third party, the third party encrypts that. There's an encryption process that makes sure that that is scrambled up, that no one can breach that communication while you're sending it there. No one can breach it when it lands there. The independent third party does their verification, and they will send you something called a token. They'll send a token back to your company, which is just an identifying marker to say, yes, we have verified this ID, and here is kind of like a confirmation number. Here's your confirmation number that will tie things back to it. Now, if an attacker breaches this particular company or their web app, they're completely disjoint from that database that is located on the third party.
So there's, in a lot of the things that are out there about this, people have been using the term vibe coded. And they're saying that the app itself was vibe coded. And if I'm understanding everything correctly about this app, they used Firebase as a tool to help them, and they were using AI to help them actually do the coding. And we have, through our app development and stuff, as we're going through the process, pop-ups come up or whatever saying, do you want this? Or you could also have that, or, this is an option for you. And my question is did they have to have ignored those warnings as they were developing this app, especially about that information that they claimed they were not going to keep, but ended up keeping? How does that mistake get made? Because that's the key crucial mistake that happened first of all.
Well, again, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but let's talk about application development and the coding side of things, and vibe coding in general, and using AI to either do your coding or to help you with your coding. Most computer programmers that are writing code, they know how to build things. They're very good at building things, and they will build things to whatever specifications that they are given. That doesn't mean that cybersecurity specifications are going to be given from the beginning. It might be an afterthought. This is true for, everyone has used a large language model like ChatGPT. If you ask a question, you get an answer. It doesn't necessarily ask you for, hey, give me some context around this. Write me a piece of code that does a thing. AI can do this, and it does it very well. Are you telling the large language model, the vibe coding way of doing this, are you saying, give me a piece of code to do a thing and also make sure that the OWASP top 10 is considered and other cybersecurity best practices when you give me this piece of code? What we're talking about over here with a database, you have your code that is talking to a database, communicating with a database. That isn't even considered that communication necessarily by your coding requirements, including those that are being given to a large language model, to any AI system. There's nothing wrong with using AI systems for coding, to support coding. And some of those flags that you mentioned before, that's coming from probably some AI built around that, maybe some just rules-based kinds of things. AI can be a very powerful tool for helping secure your secure development life cycle, to help secure your development life cycle, I should say. But if you don't know how to use that, what those specifications and requirements are, know anything about them, you're going to see this often. And we do. We see this all the time. And it's not vibe coders, or not just vibe coders. These are trained, professional, been doing development for years. But this is just one small piece of the larger puzzle.
So they needed to come at it with security in mind, and it needed the human element to be involved a little bit more, perhaps, than it was.
Well, not necessarily. AI is getting better, and if you give some more if you give high-level commands to an AI system to help you build another system, it could be a one-liner, can produce a lot more than a quick Google search. It's very good. If you have a company that's building an application or building any custom code, custom software in general, you want to have systems in place. Some of those are AI systems, some of those are human systems. Having a human in the loop is very good practice, but where in that loop is the question.
So that gets to a bit of Brian, our CEO's kind of pet peeve about engineering anymore is almost everybody only does 3D modeling. Nobody does 2D images anymore, okay? And he remembers when he was in engineering school, he had to take the 2D image to somebody to go get it checked. And therein they would focus on things like, posing questions about tolerances, what lubricants you're going to use, what materials you're going to use to make this out of, how are you going to allow for friction, airflow, any of a number of questions that somebody with a bit of experience is going to know to ask. But if you're just a guy sitting at home on your own computer, you don't have that wealth of people to ask. You lose a little bit of the hive mind because we're taking the human element out of some things, right?
Sure.
And how many times do you come across that as a problem for your clients?
Well, before I touch on that,
okay.
I want to talk about 3D modeling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, have you ever heard of a Decatur map?
Yes.
Yes. Are you familiar with this? That's a projection-based map.
Very surface level.
Let's talk about that. And surface is pun intended, I hope. So we have a spherical Earth, And we would like to take a look at what does that look like? How can we view that? It would be kind of difficult, especially back a long time ago, to sell a 3D model of the Earth. Pretty easy to do so now. You can go on Amazon and buy yourself a globe. Might be difficult for kids to bring to school if they want to take a geography class and look at different parts of the world. A little bit easier to have a flat surface.
Right.
Much more affordable.
That's why we can't wait for true hologram technology, right? So that we
That's
could just
right.
bring a device, plop it down, and start doing our
Sure.
thing and pointing and touching, just like, out of a Marvel movie or something.
One of
That
my-
would be
That's right. One of my favorite hologram references isn't from a Marvel movie, but it is from the TV show Silicon Valley.
oh,
Have
okay.
you seen this?
No, it's
We'll,
not
we'll,
one that I
we'll, we'll
watched.
have to link the URL and I'll send it to you later.
All right.
You'll love it. Just make things more complex is always the answer. But anyway, we have a spherical thing and we want to map it to a flat thing. How would you go about doing that? Can you cut open a sphere?
No, it
And
becomes
lay
flayed
flat.
out and deformed when you try to smoosh the image from 3D to
That's
2D.
right. That's right. So how did we end up doing it? How do we produce the maps that we have today that you see most of the time?
Well, the maps I don't know. For
Okay.
3D modeling, old school way was to do it in layered drawings or whatever, so
Right,
that you got
right.
to see it by layer.
Sure.
And you could, there was still an amount of visualization that was involved, how it all fit together and whatnot. But as far as maps, I don't know. Probably most people are still baffled by how in the hell we've got the
Well,
Earth on a flat map.
This is a popular thing that's been covered in shows before, TV shows, and this is something that comes up when you take some higher level math courses, which my background is in mathematics, and I was fascinated by this as I am today. And I have taught math and I've taught engineers, and we've talked about some of these things before. So you take this spherical thing, and you take a flashlight in the center of this spherical thing, and you shine that flashlight, and it goes through the point, and it will splash it onto. You'll wrap this up in a cylinder. Okay, so you wrap this thing up, the sphere, into a cylinder, and then you unwrap that map, and that's your map.
Okay.
Okay, so what happens to the poles? The poles get shot into space.
Right.
So it doesn't map very well. The places around the poles get mapped very far from that center. So the map that we look at today is a deformed version of our sphere. But there's no other way of doing it. There's no way that we can project a sphere to a 2D image. So bringing it back to the technology conversation, there are certain things that just they cannot be done no matter how much technology we throw at it. We're still limited by some of these things. And the fact that we have 3D modeling and we do that often, it's very difficult sometimes to project a 2D to a 3D, especially using technology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And vice versa. So we were limited before by what we had, and now that we have 3D, it makes sense why we're doing that.
Cool.
We talked about 3D modeling, how your boss can't stand that kids are doing 3D modeling instead of 2D like he was trained on.
So it was more to the human element that's involved in app development, and this gentleman was by himself trying to, from what I understand, I'm sure he's got a team of people now, but I would have thought that somebody would have gone back and double checked on what was there before to see, but then again, a lot of times, as long as it ain't broke, you don't worry about it, especially in business.
Well,
right?
that especially in business, you are building things. You are focused on customer acquisition. This company in particular was focused on user acquisition.
Indeed.
How can we get more users? Well, we do advertising, we do marketing. We don't make things more secure. That doesn't equate to most people to more users. There's a case to be made for that when you look back in hindsight. That's 2020. We're going to lose a lot of users because we've lost their trust. So as we're seeing an increase of AI, it is my prediction that our expectations for things working better. That's what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is going to have to be closer and closer to perfect. If you try to buy a product or use a service and it doesn't go well, you can just go somewhere else, and the standard's going to be raised. We'll see. I don't have a deductive argument to make this. This is all very inferential, but Nonetheless, no, when a business was thinking, when a business like this was thinking about adding users, they weren't thinking about securing those users to retain that. They're thinking about how many more can we get. And it was an oversight, and as we are working with that web applications and internet connectivity, things get more and more complex. And when you have complex systems, there are more and more vulnerabilities, not just this one here and one here, but you combine these two things together and you get a new vulnerability.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And so that's where it comes into play. And you talk about it doesn't translate into new users, but it certainly affects the bottom line. It's definitely going to affect this company's bottom line, right?
Well, you could hire a cybersecurity expert to come in and design all these systems. Let me say this. Let me say you could bring in a cybersecurity, suppose you're, just throwing some numbers out here. Suppose the valuation of the web application itself is $1 million. Would you hire a cybersecurity expert to make it secure for $2 million?
No.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make that quantitative risk determination. What makes sense? You can't secure everything. There's some risk involved with it all. And
don't I know it? As evidenced by every single breach that I've received a notification from, right? We talked about
Sure.
Facebook.
uh-huh.
There was a Facebook hack, breach, whatever, right? Their information got taken from
And you
somebody that
stopped
wasn't
using-
supposed to have it.
You stopped using Facebook immediately, right?
Well,
No.
no, but it was already on the outs for me anyway, and it was one more
Sure.
reason not to.
Most people didn't leave. They didn't go out of business.
Right.
There are companies that have been breached multiple times, and they don't go out
My
of
bank
business. Yeah.
has been breached, which is part of the reason that leads to my paranoia. I mean, I struggle with the choice to even accept cookies or not. So me giving you my personal information, my driver's license, social security, even my actual real telephone number, the email address that, which email address am I giving you is determined by, my level of confidence and how well you're going to protect my stuff and what you're going to do with it.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, but my mentality or just that subject? Because
Well, let's talk about your mentality along that subject. This application that people were using, they want to use it to build trust to when they're going out on dates with someone. They want to get feedback, almost like would you go to this restaurant? Well, let me check the reviews.
right,
Right?
which I do all the time.
Was there an alternative to using this app for this particular case? No, not necessarily.
It seemed to be the only game in town.
Seemed to be the only game in town. Let's bring it back to, suppose someone's looking for housing, they need a support on that. And so they go to the federal housing office and they're saying, you need to upload your information.
It's the government, so they already have it. So why wouldn't I go ahead and give it to them again?
Well, they already have it, but just because they have it doesn't mean that they're authenticating who you are, that you are who you say you are. And people that have been compromised really have felt this. When you get compromised, someone's pretending to be you, the rest of your life can be very complicated, and your trust of giving away that information it's a terrible feeling. So if you want to get housing, you're being told by the government, by this government entity, you must upload a copy of your license to prove you are who you say you are. You don't have a choice to not do that. So what we would like to see is that this government entity is using those best cybersecurity practices. This app that was compromised, that had data compromised, we want people to be able to use services and feel safe that their information isn't going to be compromised. Things that enrich their lives. Well, I mean, it's hard to say if this application did or didn't. It's hard to say that with any application that we use. But people make choices for a reason. If you were asked to, if someone was using a delivery service like Amazon and they're being asked to prove to who they are by uploading a license, most people are going to do that. And they're going to cross their fingers that Amazon is spending the budget on doing those things. But Amazon could be using a third party to do those things, and then we look at that Target breach that happened a long time ago.
Mhm.
You familiar with this one?
Yes.
Do you know how that Target breach happened?
Not the nuts and bolts of it, no.
It's a really good use case. The Target breach, where billions of data points, I believe, was, I'm not sure, how large that was, but it was all customer data,
Mhm.
customer related data to Target. It's like, okay, well, Target's got a budget, so I'm sure they've got a cybersecurity team, and they're probably pretty smart people.
Everybody expects the IT guy to be, it's
Sure.
more of an IT guy is the, he's wearing all the hats for our cybersecurity and data mining and,
We'll dive-
interconnectivity and stuff.
We'll dive into the IT guy here in a minute. But it wasn't the security team that missed something necessarily. It wasn't that somebody was trying to bang on the door of Target's IT systems. Somebody already had the key. It was an HVAC company who had access to Target systems. So they didn't breach Target, they breached the HVAC company. And we have more and more connectivity like this, these third parties
Wow.
that we're using, yeah. So
So it's the AC guy was the Trojan horse. Their company was through their connection to Target that
it was
they
a
were able
trusted
to.
connection, yes.
Yeah.
It was trusted connection, there was no,
So it's
it was breached, yeah.
mhm. So it's not just you; it's the people that you're currently trusting.
That's correct.
So
And that goes even further because we use cloud apps all the time.
right. So
So we have cloud apps, and these cloud companies that have data centers that are
feel free to elaborate on cloud apps too, because that's data that's stored on a bunch of people's systems, and some of them don't even know that they're hosting this data, as I understand it.
that's something different. Let's just talk about
Okay, fair enough.
a really pure case of, okay, let's do something, a cloud-based app or something like this. So the computer isn't in somebody's building, right? Like you guys, do you have servers where you're at?
We're installing one. So
Sorry? Oh, you're installing one,
We're
yes.
installing one.
Okay,
yep.
so right now you're probably using some cloud-based things like,
Yep.
we'll just say Gmail, for instance.
Yep.
Gmail, they've got a data center somewhere.
Mhm.
It's 24/7 monitoring, and they've got all kinds of cybersecurity. in
15
place.
terabytes of storage.
Whatever it is, right?
Right.
Well, if somebody has your username and password and pretend to be you, they now have access to all of your data. It doesn't matter that you have all of those other controls in place. If you don't have that key, if you give somebody away your key, they have access.
So that leads me into a question that I thought of as I was diving into some of this is, if we're streaming somewhere other than our home TV,
Yeah,
it comes on and says, oh, we don't recognize this device.
sure.
And so, which seems to be as simple as, it's an annoying measure most of the time because you're you, and, and I would imagine that 90 times out of 100, it is you that's trying to stream the videos or whatever on some other device, right? But why with this thing, this hack or access in particular, why wouldn't it notice that it was somebody not on the campus or not already a part of their network? Why wouldn't it have kicked a red flag to somebody? And we'll get to the IT guy, but whoever their cybersecurity thing was.
Sure. Let's talk about the streaming service first.
Okay,
Okay? You said something like 9% it is you or
I just pulled some numbers, but
whatever. That 10% is pretty significant, first of all.
Right.
We'll back away from that. You ever stay in an Airbnb?
no,
No? Okay.
sheltered life. But
Sheltered life, that's fine.
but I could see staying in an Airbnb, and what would I want to do? I'd want to watch Netflix, Hulu,
You sure would.
Disney Plus.
You turn the TV on
Mhm.
and you pull up Netflix. Guess what happens?
It's going to give me that warning. It says, no, it's just going to play for me.
You're going to get a list of users who have logged in on their
Oh,
station
my.
for you.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And they have authenticated they are who they say they are.
Uh-huh.
You are now watching on their account.
Right.
Are you paying for that? Who's paying for that? Essentially,
They're
they're paying for that.
Yeah.
That warning that you receive, is that for cybersecurity or is that because there's a bottom line involved? In terms of they don't want you giving out your credentials to someone else.
Well, and they've
They want
been
that
cracking
person
down
with
on
them.
that lately, right?
It's not a
Everybody's
cybersecurity thing.
okay.
It's
So
not a cybersecurity
It's
thing.
just a subscription thing. That's
It's a
a
subscription
subscription that, to their minds, they're missing out on.
If you have a product, would you like someone to use? Would you like people to use it?
Sure, and I want more people, increasing numbers of people to use it. So I get from a business point of view, hey,
Yeah.
let's make sure that they're not just sponging off of somebody else's sign-in to
Or
do this
yeah,
stuff.
I mean, if one of your users travels somewhere,
Mhm.
are you going to not let them use your product?
That's going to lead to bad PR and
It's
hurt
going to
feelings.
it's going to lead to a bad customer experience.
Exactly.
That's why.
Okay.
Security should be designed in a way that reduces the locking people out, gives them the access that they need. But how do we do that? It gets complex very quickly. We need to be able to prove that people are who they say they are. One of the metrics, we talked about 2D versus 3D.
Mm-hmm.
There's more than 3D, right? There are
Right.
4D, 5D, 6D. There are just different variables that we can have in place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where are they signing in from? Do they use their username and password? Do they have a second factor set up? They're all, what time of day is it? Do they normally sign in at this time of day? There are all kinds of different factors that we could play into this to say, yeah, this is most likely the user that we expect them to be.
Yeah, two-factor authorization is a pet peeve of mine.
Is it?
Yes, it is. And so I know we're
Tell me
talking
more.
about cybersecurity
Tell
and
me
stuff.
tell me why that's a pet peeve.
It's the cynic in me, right?
Okay.
Most of my information has already been hacked multiple
Oh.
times. Okay, so there's
Sure.
that element, right?
Sure.
I know that Facebook, I know that my bank, I know that the government's been hacked. So tell me who hasn't been hacked is probably the shorter list that I give my information to. That's number one. Number two, my problem is it's two-factor authentication, right? Okay, so I've got to give them a number or give them an email address so that I can get sent a code so that I can then type in the code to do whatever I'm trying to do. Where am I most likely trying to do all that crap on? So more than likely somebody could just have my phone, they're gonna get the, oh, well, sure, go ahead and email it to me. Oh, dang, look, there's a notification here. Oh, there's the thing, so I'm still in.
Yep.
So to me, two-factor authentication is kind of pointless.
So it's pointless from the side that if you're already compromised, that they're going to have that as well?
Yes, and
Okay.
more than likely, if they've got my device,
Mhm.
they're still
I
missing
see.
it.
So this is a scenario where your device is taken from you,
Mhm.
and they're logging in and they already have the device.
Yep,
It's way worse than that.
okay,
Okay? So we've been talking now for about an hour or so.
Mhm.
We know each other from before this,
Mhm.
even though I don't need any of this stuff.
right.
I bet I could find a lot of information about you online.
Oh, I'm positive you can.
I could find out where you live,
Yep.
probably find out your date of birth,
Mm-hmm.
your telephone number,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of other things. Probably the people that are around you, etc.
Which cycles us right back to the
I
TI.
could probably figure out, I can see your phone right here in front of me. I can figure out what type of phone that is.
Uh-huh.
And I can figure out who your cell phone carrier is,
Mm-hmm.
especially if I know what your number is, which I can find publicly on the internet.
Right.
How about I call your cell phone carrier, say that I'm you, and I buy a new device. Now I've got your device. Not that physical device, but I've got your SIM card.
Right.
It's called SIM swapping.
Mm-hmm.
So now I've got you compromised and your second factor gets sent to me. So that is indeed vulnerable two-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm.
There are new technologies that are better than that, and they're stronger than that and have more gates along the way. Your second factor could be an app that's on your phone, and it's only tied to your phone. If someone steals your phone, you have probably some things in place. You have got a Face ID, you've got a thumbprint, you have a code. Let's hope that your device doesn't get stolen. That's not typically how these things go.
Okay.
This is typically someone exploiting someone else's system and doing things that way.
All right.
There are different things that you can do as a user to protect yourself, and eliminating text-based two-factor authentication and email-based, those are some things that you can do. Move towards something that it's got to be that device.
But there again, in going through the story, you brought up the concern. Okay, so what happens when I
How about you
change
get-
devices?
Sure, when you change devices, it becomes annoying, right?
Yep.
Yes, it is
So,
annoying.
because, a lot of people, not me, but a lot of people will buy a new phone every 1 to 2 years.
Sure.
As soon as the new model comes out, they have to have it.
Companies are adapting to this and making the process more streamlined. So there's that.
Yeah.
Other companies are not.
And by
It's
making
a
it more
pain in the butt.
streamlined, aren't they making it more insecure
No.
as well?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Well, because,
So the goal for cybersecurity is streamlined, is a positive user experience. It's things are happening and you either don't know about it or they're minimal. We talked about the IT guy and the IT department.
Mhm.
They can build anything. They are master engineers, master architects. The cyber person is the one that comes in and does the audit. It's the person that says, okay, that's great that you built a thing, but here's what can go wrong.
he's the
Here's-
devil's advocate guy.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, okay, so say I'm bad and I'm coming in, you know, how bad is it for you?
Right.
What can I accomplish and what level of knowledge do I have to have in order?
Here's this
'cause-
thing. Here's this thing you built. If I push this button, it breaks the whole thing.
Right,
So put a cover on that button, or do some other thing, or remove the button altogether.
exactly.
That's that dynamic.
Mhm.
But ultimately, the user experience should be as close to the original intention as possible.
All right,
We're trying to reduce those toll gates to that you mentioned before. Like I don't like two-factor authentication. Something else I have to do. If I get a new phone, I get screwed up. You know, I don't trust that it's even securing me. We're getting closer. We're trying to move towards things like passwordless. We're trying to move towards things where it's just tapping rather than having to type in codes, things like that.
so I guess from my perspective, I told you earlier on that we're developing our own app.
Yeah.
So how do we develop, how does ATG develop an app with cybersecurity in mind from the front end, especially if we're using AI to help code
Sure.
or whatever the case may be?
Well,
You
the
know?
first thing you want to do is enter security into the design process. What are you trying to build? What is it supposed to do?
Mhm.
And start thinking again, what can go wrong?
Mhm.
What are some things to consider? Are you collecting data? Is any of that data sensitive? What happens if you lose access to this app or users lose access to this app? Is it something that does things like payroll on a 2-week basis and you've got 14 days or 13 days to correct it? Or is it something that is processing things in milliseconds? So having that conversation in early is where you want to start having those security conversations, right at the design stage of building something.
Mhm.
And this includes your development processes. Like, okay, what are we doing? If we're talking, for lack of a better system, if we're talking about Scrum and we've got that 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, we want to have security at that 4-hour kickoff meeting. I can't remember what it's called.
Our Scrum Master was invaluable as far as
Sure.
helping us to work through this process,
Yeah.
asking questions, keeping everybody on pace, making sure that, checking in with some people daily, just to make sure
Mhm.
if they had, you know, if they were trying to get through certain, you know, eliminate certain bugs. Okay, where are you in
Yeah.
the bug elimination process? How many have we marked off? Do we need any extra software support? Do we need to bring in somebody special to do work on this problem? Yeah, that guy, incredible.
For sure. And then you got your product owner at the front, again, who should be making these considerations for cyber, going through those requirements, asking what cybersecurity requirements do we have? And either someone who is versed in cyber or a specialized person should be providing those cyber requirements, understanding thoroughly about the business and what this app is supposed to do. And then that cyber doesn't go away. It continues throughout the process, and the Scrum Master should also consider those things as well. You mentioned AI usage. I love tool usage. AI versus AI and non-AI, rules-based tools.
Mhm.
So there are different things that can be happening as software developers are writing code that are being flagged. So most coders are working in something like VS Code. And if they write something that doesn't make sense, it's usually picked up by that. There's a little red squiggly line underneath of it. There are more tools that you can add on to this. Things that do scanning for security issues and different types of scanning, different types of things that are being picked up before it's even sent to be processed, sent into into deployment. And there are different toll gates along the deployment side as well, including someone actively trying to break your stuff. not just from a quality assurance perspective, but from a cybersecurity perspective. Can I break this stuff?
So with that, now you're speaking to the gamer in me, right?
Yeah.
Because every Christmas there's a DDoS attack on
Yeah.
Xbox or PlayStation or whatever, right? Bringing them down just as the Christmas noobs are coming on, and everybody's sitting around going, "Oh, it's feast time."
Yep.
That's been in the game forever. And so I guess the question then becomes, how do you prevent that? And how, if you're utilizing AI, do you prevent malicious code from getting into your thing? Either game-breaking stuff or things that some nefarious other party could then tap in and grab whatever data you're trying to preserve, or
Sure.
bust up your system if you're, because we do all kinds of engineering work, right?
Sure.
So we do engineering work we could do for defense contractors, right? For various manufacturers and off-highway, we can design parts and stuff from scratch and then have that cut out, printed out, machined, whatever needs to be done. So there's an issue of protection there. If we develop a new product, which we've done, protecting that as well. You talked about somebody coming into the website, okay?
Yeah.
Well, then stealing the product itself becomes
Sure.
cyber. I know I've covered a lot of ground.
Absolutely.
Let's start with, how do we keep malicious stuff from getting in with AI coding?
Well,
Are there inherent safeguards built in, or is that something extra that we need to be focused on externally from that?
inherent safeguards is really risky. And
Especially if you're using a free versus paid subscription or whatever.
sure, and we'll talk about, security shouldn't be something you have to pay for. That's a big issue, especially in the security world. People bring this to light all the time, like, if you get our paid version, then you get two-factor authentication. That should not be the case. If you're using a free version of something, and there's a paid version that uses two-factor, but not the free, that's no good.
That's shady.
Basic cybersecurity things should be coming out of the box. But we're talking about, like, okay, we've got Jira. I'm sure you're familiar with Jira, and I'm sure other users are as well. We've got Jira, we've got GitHub, we've got our deployment system. All of those things, are those secure? Do we have users that are authenticated before they get into there? That's how things get malicious, they get inserted, like access to those systems. You have to start there, then you go in further layer, closer and closer to that actual machine code that's being developed.
But as you're knee deep in this process, half the time you're just focused on the work, not even thinking about.
That's why you have to go in the design stage. Start way left. Do you have a secure development lifecycle where you're developing code here and deploying it and maintaining it? It has to be thought of beforehand. You have to use tools that are configured in the right way to help prevent some of these things from happening.
All right, so you're bringing that up. So what questions should people be asking as they're going through this process? How does it become automatic for them as they're using each of these different tools to have that in their mindset?
Well, some of these tools they don't really know are being used. That's the beauty of them.
Okay.
Like, it's just things that are happening that, okay, well, I can't do this, so I have to do this. That's kind of by design.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking things, the full picture into consideration. When you're looking at your risk, and this is what we do as cybersecurity practitioners, we find the risk and present that to the risk. We present that risk to who is making decisions so that they can make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's got to be all the way through, not just little points along the way.
And really, it comes down to how many commas are attached to that risk. And I'm talking, how many dollars is it going to be?
That's part of the problem. We don't really know. We don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And cyber insurance has become a very popular thing.
Right.
And they don't seem to know either. In fact, they really can't know based upon the mathematics around it. We talked about projecting a map onto a flat surface.
Mm-hmm.
There are some unknowns on the mathematics as well. For us to predict flood insurance, right, we've got tons of data. this cyber stuff is all new. It's all brand new.
Right, and AI is just now becoming really mainstream, kind of everyman being able to use that instead
Sure.
of, some, the geeks in the back room, so to speak.
Sure.
So,
But it should be that someone who doesn't have access can't use that AI maliciously. So
Mhm.
you just make sure that they don't have, you make sure that you are vetting who has access to your systems.
and is this being factored into the development of the AI itself? I mean, Grok is out there, we've got ChatGPT, right? So these are
little
two
bit.
different AI systems,
A little bit.
but how are they incorporating security into those two things? Is that,
There's a little bit of that in there. If you ask ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, hey, write me some code that will create some ransomware because I want to get some money,
Mhm.
they won't give you an answer. However, people have figured out other ways of asking the same question to get the same result. They are constantly at LLMs trying to protect themselves from that happening. But again,
Reminds me of people trying to get the naughty gamer tags through, right?
sure.
How did they do it? First, they swapped out numbers for letters. Then they
Sure.
swapped out symbols for that.
Mhm.
Then it became emojis,
Yeah.
right? So, and I'm sure this is no different, only it's going to move faster, I would think. To me, it continues to move faster.
Well,
It gets to the whole singularity discussion, which is way
Sure,
out there,
sure. we're using AI on the defense side as well. So we're having AI fight AI.
but do you want to play a game?
There you go.
Oh my
It's,
goodness.
it's
Yeah.
add in for that.
I'm a child of the 80s, so.
It should be interesting to see what the future holds because we do have AI offensive type of systems being built, but also defensive, and we're probably going to see them battling it out.
Yeah. Interesting to see what that starts to look like. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Wild time to be alive.
Oh, dude, and it just keeps getting wilder. I look at my kids, and on some things I'm like,
Sure.
oh, you guys have it so easy. And on other things I'm like, oh man, I'm so scared for you guys.
Yeah.
How are you going to navigate it? How many things are going to blow up in your face like they blew up for me as I've been navigating, through mine?
Well, again, we touched upon someone personally being compromised, and that can really mess you up. You can have houses taken from you, your house taken from you, your bank account emptied. We're using pay apps, right? I won't name those by name, but we know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And someone is able to compromise that, and you go to your bank and say, hey, my bank was empty because of this app I used, and they'll say, well, go talk to them. And then you go talk to them, and they'll point you back to the bank, and then the bank will point you back to them, and they'll say something like, well, you authorized this transaction, and you did.
By using the app, just by default in some cases.
Well, in some cases, you think that you are authorizing a transaction to someone,
Mm-hmm.
and you just don't know what you're actually doing, but it looks very familiar, and you end up authorizing a transaction.
It's like when you go to a restaurant, and most of the time you're actually authorizing them to run your card twice, right? They run your card for the bill itself, and then you write in the tip, so
Yeah.
they've got to go back and revise those numbers.
Sure. But with the apps that are on top of things, again, it adds that complexity. So you're talking about some things that you don't do. There are some things that I don't do. Like, I don't use a debit card for anything. I don't use a debit card. If my debit card is compromised, most banks have a process that's too long for me. It's money that's sitting in the bank account. It's gone. If my credit card gets compromised, they don't care. They just refund me. Done. I report compromise. It's credit back to the account. So there are some safeguards that are in place, and people are starting to change their behavior gradually, and companies are starting to recognize that and change their behavior as well, and that's forcing their bottom line to add in security from the beginning.
Cool. So, something that just came to my mind, we started off talking about the TFs. They actually had two different breaches.
Right.
The first was personal information of the women that had
Yep.
signed up for the app. And then, well, and one could say there's three breaches, but then there's the men that they were discussing, right? Because the conversations that the women were having came up.
Yeah.
What you were saying just now reminded me of the fact of how difficult it is to prove a negative. And so, especially in a cyberspace, right? Somebody can go online and make claims about you. How do you prove that they're untrue?
Yeah.
And if somebody goes and accuses somebody else of being a pedo, how do you prove that you weren't? Is the big question, right? And in a social media setting,
reputational management,
yeah, and really, it's coming down to your reputation these days. With the movement towards a social score, right?
Sure.
A social credit score. That would be a huge flaw in that system, in my eyes. Somebody could say anything about you, and it would impact. But how does somebody fight against that? What has that come up?
Someone who has had their reputation damaged by someone saying something else about them?
Well, particularly in an online kind of environment, or whatever the case may be.
Well, first, let's talk about the TF for a moment.
Yep,
And,
that's what got us started on all this.
Again, I don't know exactly what happened, but if you were to have an application where you have your users and you have your users that are able to post information, and that information is potentially sensitive, you might want to consider a way of not being able to trace back who said what. So within your database structure, here's a post that someone made.
Tying a username to an actual person.
Correct. Well, I'm saying there's something in your system that ties that username back to the person.
Mm-hmm.
Can you traverse from this post back to the actual person and their driver's license? That's a badly designed system.
Because it seems that was the case here.
It seems that was the case. Again, I don't know all the details.
No,
of the breach.
me neither. And there's a bunch of stuff out there.
There's a bunch of stuff out there. It needs to be confirmed. But just in general, you want to consider, if you want to keep things anonymized, you've got to keep things separate and make it so that you can't go from one place to the other. As if someone were to breach one area of your system, they're not able to traverse over to another one, which is typically the case, is why you hear about phishing all the time. It's like, well, who cares? Like, one of your users got compromised, right? Okay, fine. What do they have? Email? There's all kinds of gold in that email, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, a compromise takes like 9 months from the day of breach, the day that they're in, to the day that they actually do something.
Really?
Absolutely. They're collecting.
People think it's so much faster.
It's not. There's too much information for them to collect. There's no incentivization for them to move forward because they're already in. There's nothing stopping them from
They can take their
doing
sweet time.
Take their sweet time. And what the typical pathway is you go in at the user you're able to compromise, see what access they have, and if they don't have the access that you need, find a way to escalate your privileges to get into a sensitive database, and great, you've got access. I'm going to lock down this entire database and charge you $1 million for the encryption key.
So how do you create that wall, that separation between the thing? Like,
That's a huge question. One of the ways you could do it is train your employees to not get phished. That seems to not go very well. People who click on things, they will click on things forever. So there's no silver bullet, but there are, I don't know how to turn that into something, but there are lots of little tiny silver bullet things that you can do along the way. Some of the things that we talked about, like two-factor authentication.
Well,
If you give somebody a phishing technique, right?
mm-hmm.
Somebody calls you from the help desk,
Yeah.
says, "Hey, I need to access your stuff," and you give them your username and password. If that's the only thing that's proving that that's you, it's terrible, because they're not you, and all you did was give me your username and password. There's new two-factor authentication. You mentioned before, well, what if they just say, "Hey, you're going to get a two-factor authentication. Just give that to me when you get it." Well, that's not good either.
Right.
If they are asking for a code, you give them the 6-digit code, and this happens all the time. we talked about earlier about businesses that are still in business even after a breach.
In some ways, and I'm sorry, I want to stick with this, but in some ways, I almost trust people a little more after they've been breached. Why? Because their attention's on it then. And they're trying to make sure, because there's going to be lawsuits and everything else that's going to drain their pockets, so they're going to put in measures to try and prevent that very same thing from happening again.
Well, not really.
Not really.
Not really. It depends on how.
Is it like car makers where they factor in that?
It is.
Okay.
100%.
Well, and just in case.
From a company perspective, very much so. It is considered the cost of doing business in some cases.
And you factor it into your budget sheet.
Yeah.
But, a lot of people don't realize that say car manufacturers, right? They will factor in how many people can get, killed and sue, or severely injured and sue, and for them to still be able to make a profit on that car.
Sure.
And for businesses and things like that. And of course, the balloon gets bigger, I guess, if you have some sort of insurance for that very thing.
Yeah.
Because then you're spreading the risk out. There's you and the insurance company that's covering that risk.
Well, the insurance companies are doing things to protect themselves as well.
Right.
As they should.
Hence denying the claim the first 3 times that you call, or whatever the case may be.
Well, not just denying the claim, it's saying that this is not covered at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, here in the policy, it clearly explains that we don't cover acts of God. This is an act of God.
That is a good example, and there are analogs to this within in this world. So, getting back to, man, I don't know what we were talking about. I was talking about phishing. And,
You were talking about phishing, and of course, 2-factor authentication, and how people will call claiming they're from the help desk or whatever, and people just take them at their word and give them their login and password, right?
Right. So when we talked about that second factor, and you're giving a code, like that is no longer effective because they're not proving who they say they are.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have something where you need to prove that you're you by something that's known only to you, that you enter in on your phone, that can create some separation. If you are breached, if you have a bad system that I mentioned, and it's just username and password, and this person over here is doing some things that you don't normally do, there should be some systems in place to detect that happening. So called user behavior analytics.
Okay.
So this person's doing some strange
It
things.
circles right back to the whole, shouldn't an alarm go up somewhere that, hey, somebody
You've
not in our
got to
system.
set up the alarms.
Yeah.
You have to set up the alarms. You have to tune the alarms. If you set up alarms for everything that's risky, then everything's risky. And it's like, I can't keep track
You
of
can't
this.
function. You become
Because
bogged
you just
down.
get alarms all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be able to tune those things. You got complex systems, you have to come up with complex solutions.
Sure. So, Rich, how can companies protect themselves from lawsuits and, financial damage by having robust security protocols in place from day one? We've touched on it a little bit, but I want to make sure it's abundantly clear. From an ATG perspective, right, when somebody hires ATG, they don't just get the engineers, they get the manager. So he's watching over and making sure that the work is staying done, right?
Right.
That everything is coming in on time, under budget, or that things are being communicated properly if challenges arise or whatever the case may be. So from your perspective, how could somebody start off minimizing this damage and doing it, within a reasonable budget?
Sure. There are free publications out there. There are researchers that have done phenomenal work in these areas, namely the NIST. CSF and the NIST 853 are great frameworks to look to build out basic cybersecurity programs. There's even some lower level ones as well, like the the CIS. There's another framework by an organization called CIS, but NIST CSF is one that I see used from small companies all the way up to enterprise. Within that has best cybersecurity practices of some of the different areas where you should be doing things, like making sure people are who they say they are, making sure that people only have enough access to do their job, making sure you have systems in place to revoke people's access, making sure that you have logging turned on so that you can go back and look at what things went wrong, making sure that you have a plan in place if things do go wrong. Who are you going to call? Who needs to know about what's happening? What are some things that are going to automatically kick off? How often are you going to back up your data? How often are you going to test your systems? Things like that.
And when in the process, say if somebody's just getting started with their business, is this, the first call after they make sure they've got a lawyer in place to protect their idea? Or, where does that factor in?
I mean, I'm going to biasly say day one.
Well,
but that
please
bias,
do. This was the whole point to having you
the
on here.
bias is it's well grounded. When I started my company, because I've seen what can go wrong, it was built into my systems as well. And my systems aren't perfect. I have to spend time, my own self, and I have help to make sure that my systems are where they need to be. You can't do everything yourself. Sometimes it is very good to get an independent set of eyes on it, an independent third party to try to assess your systems, to try to penetrate your systems, etc. So
And they should do that before they go live.
well, those things are expensive. So you have to look at your risk and really think about
Or maybe factor that into, hey, once we hit this dollar threshold.
It all depends. It depends on what your risk is.
Mhm.
What is your risk appetite? If you were to have your business compromised and go out of business, but you don't have any customers yet, who cares?
Right.
Just go spin up another business. If you have a business that isn't holding sensitive data, maybe not as much risk here. If your data were to be compromised, but it's not anybody's personal information, you have to pay for credit reports if it's breached, things like that. Your reputation's not going to be affected by it that largely. I wouldn't make those types of investments into getting someone to come in and charge you tens of thousands of dollars to break into your system. It's not part of your budget yet. You got to look at your risk along the way. As your risk increases, your security needs to increase as well, typically. Especially if you're a small company doing business with larger companies, what you're going to run into, and this is where I specialize, I play both sides of the fence. I help smaller companies get big clients. I help the big clients make sure that those small companies that are serving them have their cyber in order. But if you're a smaller company that's trying to do business with a large company, that large company might say to you, hey, you cannot do business with us unless you have these things in place.
Certain ducks in a row. Then come back
Yeah.
and talk to us, right?
Correct.
All right.
That process isn't great. There's a lot of development that needs to go into that area, but we're being forced to do that because of cyber insurance, because of what's happening. People see in the news. Not so much that I saw the news and that looks terrible, but I saw the news and I know that person. I know the owner of that company and I see what they're going through and I don't want that to happen to me.
Right?
And you've got
That was us. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, we're developing an app, and this is
Yeah.
one of the things that can happen.
Mhm. So the compliance is another area where you have regulators. It might not be the fine that you're worried about, but the reputation, being able to do business. You don't want that. Even if you're working on your exit, a lot of people, when they're starting a company, they're thinking about their exit on the way out. Do you want to be in a place where you're at the exit and, hey, I want to show that my company is not compromised when you buy it? That's something that I'm seeing very absent of mergers and acquisitions, is people are buying companies and not doing that cyber assessment to make sure that they're not buying a company that someone 9 months ago has broken into.
So that means I've got a connection for you. But
Sure.
is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to get into? Feel free to plug yourself again, man, because you've shared a lot of valuable knowledge with us, and of course we appreciate it. And we're going to look to deepen our relationship with you. But you're not doing this just out of the kindness of your heart. You're hoping to get some more new customers.
Sure,
as well.
sure. I think that AI is a tool, just like we have seen other tools. And you could spin up an LLM right now and say, hey, I'm starting a new company. Here's what the company does. What are some cybersecurity considerations that I should take into consideration? What are some requirements I should take into consideration now that I'm starting a company? That is a way. That's something you can do. there are better prompts out there. Like one of the things you could add to the end of your prompt is, do you have any questions for me to help give me a better plan? And I'm suggesting that people do this. Get yourself a baseline. But when you're ready, when compliance is on the line, when your business is on the line, when your reputation is on the line, that you do reach out and you do ask for help.
All right. Well, Rich, I appreciate you being on our inaugural episode. Again, it's Rich Connor with Lockstock Cybersecurity. And if you guys have questions, comments, bewilderment, put it, below the video. You can also reach out to us if you're trying to prototype a product, or you work for a company that needs lean analysis or needs to figure out how to make your processes more cost effective and reduce expenses. Feel free to reach out and we can help you with that at Abundant Technology Group.
Follow us on social media to stay updated with our latest innovations and services.